everyone. Good evening. It's so strange to be here in the evening. I'm just going to adjust my light quickly. Hello. I'm just so glad to be here today in the evening for this wonderful talk, because I think this is going to be, we've got the last week. So we want to kick it off like, make it big. Go big or go home. I'm just finding it live on my side as well, so I can watch it at the same time in case there's questions. Yeah, so for those of you who haven't watched us before, we've already done how many weeks, Jess? 4 weeks
24 weeks?
7,000 weeks.
700 million weeks. No, a couple. We went live about a month ago. I think it was the 14th of March or something like that.
Wow. Okay, so there you go. So it's about a month.
Yeah.
And we've done really interesting talks up till now with our founding members. So if you've missed them, they're going to be up on our Facebook page until the end of April. So you've still got 2 weeks to catch up.
Yeah, and the YouTube channel as well. They'll stay there for a while as well. So there's and if you couldn't watch live, they're still all around. And we know everyone's busy and everyone's got lives. So the stuff is really important though. So take some time and watch us.
Do it. Watch all of it.
There's been some really amazing content. So it's really worth it. It's worth the 40 minutes that it takes to just get a little bit of info and the small little nuggets of information that you can get can make such a huge impact in your life that it's really worth it. So my husband likes to watch poker in the evening to like shut his mind off. I'm like, don't watch poker, watch these talks. They're so much better for your brain.
Yes, exactly.
So watch us, we're here, and watch our YouTube channel and all of that.
Yeah. And I didn't say, sorry, I'm Claire Ems. If you haven't watched us before, the co-founder with Jess of the Conscious Parenting Association South Africa. We only launched at the beginning of March, and we feel like we've done a lot in this month and a bit. But I wanted to mention a little bit about what the future of the Conscious Parenting Association will be. And the main thing is to spread awareness of conscious parenting, conscious teaching. So basically anything to do with working with our little children, we want to spread awareness in a conscious way, in however many ways we can. And one way we're going to do that is we're opening up the association for members to join. So any professionals in South Africa, parent coaches, occupational therapists, play therapists, you name it, whoever is working with children and wants to learn and grow and collaborate and network. It'll be opening the end of April.
Working with children and working with parents.
And working with parents, sorry. I don't even work with children. I work with parents. So exactly. But there was something else I was going to mention.
We're also going to open a membership, a group for parents and other individuals. Also, professionals can join that group as well. But just a supportive, private area where everyone can go and just have a safe space to ask questions and to just, feel a sense of community that we're all kind of in this together, and somewhere where people can go to find the support that they might need, whether it's for something in particular, whether they're looking for support, or whether you just want somewhere to hang out and like find some like-minded people and just connect with some people. It's amazing how just coming together from this association, I've now realized that these wonderful ladies actually don't even live far away from me, and I would never have found them. And so now it's like we can go and have a coffee together with someone who I would never have met otherwise, and it's just so amazing to be able to have those connections in such an isolating time. And even if you're not talking about anything to do with COVID or anything, parenthood, it can be isolating because you're busy and you've got your kids to deal with, and there's a lot of stuff. And so when you have found a bunch of like-minded people, it's a really nice place to decompress and to just like vent and do all the things that we have to do to get by and carry on. So those things are going to be open to all of the viewers as soon as the summit's over. So these are our last two talks tonight and then on Thursday evening as well. And now we're going to focus on some education, which is obviously huge, the future of the planet, essentially. So it's pretty important that we do it well. And we've got some amazing ladies to tell us what the best way is to educate our children in the 21st century.
Yeah. So I was going to share, before, do you want to bring them on and then I'll share? Let me share quickly because I wanted to mention, the reason we actually brought this up as a topic is because our whole focus was going to be like parenting through the pandemic. And over time, we sort of not lost our way, but so much more came into it that was only one aspect of it. But the more we've spoken about it, we've realized everyone got thrown in the deep end last year and had to see what it was like to homeschool. Some people chose then to go on to homeschool. Some people realized, you know what, homeschooling is not for me, not ever, not going to happen. Even though I was a teacher, not going to happen. So today we're talking about homeschooling, schooling at home, helping your kids with homework, anything to do with where you are the person who's helping your child learn, whether it's any of those things. So don't feel like this is only for homeschooling, and don't feel like this is only for homework. It's for anyone whenever you work with your kids and help them.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reason why people felt like they were in the deep end last year, when we were all thrown in and here's the homework and here's the syllabus and do it, is because one, people weren't given the skills. It was, proper deep end. And second, because we have an idea of what it should look like. And I'm really excited to hear what the ladies have to say today and about what homeschooling is, what it's not, what schooling can be, how to properly educate. And so this, I think, is going to be an incredible discussion. So with that, I think I'm going to be off and I'll bring on our wonderful guests.
Thanks, Jess.
Cheerio.
Cheers. Okay, our guests are coming in. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. So we've got Anna, we've got Cassandra, we've got Lilia, all founding members on the association who have so much to share with you today. I'll tell you all that yesterday we planned a 15-minute run through, and it landed up being over an hour because we can't stop talking about this amazing stuff that we are all so interested in and all want to talk about. So so enjoy. While we're talking, I'm going to start with a little intro with everyone, but please, those of you at home, please feel free to comment, ask questions. You're part of this conversation with us. So to start off with, if each of you can just tell us who you are, a little bit of what you do, just so our viewers know who they're talking to or who they're listening to, should I say. So we can start with Anna.
Hi. So yes, I'm Anna Marto, Anna for short. I'm currently working in the UAE. I've been here for 13 years, working in education, and yes, I gave up working at home to come over here and learn from really some amazing leaders and leaders in education that have challenged my thinking. And I'm really excited to bring what I've learned over here, to bring it back home, because I think, there's interesting things we can come and share back home.
Thanks, Anna. And I'm excited to hear all of those things. I've heard a little bit and I'm so intrigued. So thank you. And then Cassandra, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, so I'm Cassandra. I'm the founder of Nanny Knows, and I provide parent support for parents, specifically for child development and behavior. And I was a mom that decided off the bat that I was going to homeschool my kids when I was pregnant with my first son. And it was really the motivation, from my own schooling career, as well as, realizing where school is and working with kids and realizing that there's so many gaps. Kids are being sent to occupational therapy, to speech therapy, by having those gaps. And so I decided to homeschool my kids, and that I wanted to develop a program that helped guide parents in terms of what they can do with their kids at home, in terms of learning through play. So that is what I do with my kids, and that is what I help other parents to do as well.
Thanks, Cassandra. And again, also just can't wait to hear more from you as we talk. And then Lilia, last but not least. I wonder if Lilia can hear me. Seems she's frozen. Let me just give her a little bit of time. There we go. No, I think she'd frozen. Sorry about that. We'll try to bring Lilia on again just now to introduce herself. But we'll start off so long. Cassandra's going to talk to us a bit. I wanted to ask you, Cassandra, so what is homeschooling? What isn't homeschooling? How can we bring this idea to everybody? So everybody sort of, because everyone's got this preconceived idea, you school at home. There's the desk, there's the chair. I stand with my chalk, whatever it is. So tell us a bit about what you believe.
Well, that's it. I mean, if I'm thinking of the word homeschooling itself, I personally don't like that word because it gives us this misconception about what homeschooling actually is, right? So we look at the motives for a lot of parents wanting to homeschool, a lot of parents wanting to send their kids to school. We look at the number of hours that kids are being sent at school, whereas we look at the number of hours that they spend at home. You do the same thing, for high school kids. They can spend 2 to 4 hours doing the same amount of work that kids are doing, 6 hours plus at school. Then we're looking at the amount of minimal play that is happening at school versus at home, and what that looks like, in terms of what parents can do with the kids at home and what the schools are doing. And again, some parents are choosing to keep their kids at home because they are sitting for long hours behind the desk and being expected to do so. I know a lot of schools are starting to change that, which is great. And then we can also look at the benefits of what keeping kids at home are in terms of, actually allowing children to grow into who they are, right? It really builds a sense of who they are without any exterior forces. So that's a huge benefit and motivation for people or parents keeping their kids at home and not pressuring them into any sort of conformity. And also learning at home can look differently for different people. You've got different approaches, unschooling approach, an eclectic approach. You've got the box curriculum. So it really depends on what suits the family. Of course, in COVID, everybody was put into the position of, taking on this homeschooling thing. And as you mentioned earlier, some really struggled with it and others saw the value in it and, saw that their children were thriving. So decided to really continue with the homeschooling, especially with the little ones. I noticed a lot of people, with fear of COVID, were keeping their kids at home, were choosing to do so. So those that struggled with homeschooling, I really believe that they took on this goal-directed approach, this structured approach, had this idea that they need to do X, Y, and Z in order for their kids to be successful. And the problem with that is when, we're recreating school at home, we almost have to try and remove school and focus more on play. And that is really what I want to talk about today, bringing play back into school and what that actually means.
Yeah. And just now I'm going to ask you a bit more about the value of play and how it isn't just play. It isn't just fun. We've got Lilia back, so I'm quickly going to just pop back to Lilia. And Lilia, if you can hear me, if you can do a little intro so people know who you are and what you do.
Well, thanks, Claire. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, yeah, much better.
Okay. So I'm the founder of Synergy Parenting, and I'm a peaceful parenting advocate and a certified coach. And that's my passion. That's what I love doing. I love helping parents to feel more peaceful and empowered. And yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Lilia. And I know you and I have chatted a lot about the unschooling approach, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say as well, because although I don't want to unschool my children, I want to do it when I can. So I've chosen to send them to school and then unschool them in the afternoon.
Right.
I don't know if that even makes sense, but yeah, that's I think that's everybody's got these different ideas. So then I wanted to ask Anna. So I mean, I know you've got so many different things you're coming from now, from being in the UAE and everything. I wanted to ask you a bit about, I know you spoke to me about how important routine is. So could you talk to us a little bit about that in terms of having your kids at home and helping them?
Having your kids at home, yes. Okay, so firstly, I mean, I know a lot of people school and educate at home in different ways, and routine is something that a lot of people think they have to throw completely out the window. Now, I'm a kind of person, I always believe like the middle way, the balanced approach. So, and I know Cassandra and I spoke about this, is that when your kids are learning at home, it's good to have a loose routine, like a kind of a flow of what you intend to do for the day. That doesn't mean that you want to have a 30-minute math session, then a 30-minute English session or whatever. There should be a vague idea of what it is that you want to do. And the reason for that, well, why I believe a routine or some kind of a structure is good, because it makes kids feel safe. Little boys especially, when they don't want to learn right now, they just want to go play. So if you put up for them, okay, listen, we're going to have to get through these 2 or 3 things and then you're off to play. That kind of helps them focus. It helps them relax into what it is that you're wanting them to do. So there is a loose routine of a couple of things that you need to get through, but within that, and if you see the one thing that if you've got some math plan for them and they don't want to do it at all, chuck it out the window and leave it for tomorrow, because I think a lot of the times we have to teach or facilitate kids to learn in a way that fits with their natural rhythm.
Yeah, and that's so true, because kids aren't always ready to learn. And if they're not in that frame of mind, then it becomes pointless. it's just ticking a box we've learned.
Yeah, you can try, but sometimes there's just nothing that they're just not going to want to. And I think if you then find something that they're willing to do or that they want to do, and then I believe also that any opportunity can be a learning opportunity. It doesn't have to be just stuck at the desk and doing your writing.
Yeah. And I wanted to add to that something that I've done a lot with my kids. Okay, they're little, but I plan to keep doing it, is involving them in the routine. So saying to them, come, let's sit together and create a routine. So it's not just me saying, here's your routine. It's us creating the routine.
And us working.
And they really enjoy that. Yeah.
They do. They've got ownership then, and then they can, that's
and then they're also more likely to have that buy-in because it's them as well. It's not just you forcing it.
Forcing it on them.
Forcing. And then Lilia, I wanted to ask you a bit about, so we have maybe homeschooling or helping with homework or whatever it is that parents are doing with their children in terms of learning. And often, this I hear from friends and family, it ends up in a big fight or a big triggering situation where everybody's now arguing and the kid is telling the parents to stop and the parents are telling them just to do the damn work now because we've got to get it done. So I was going to ask you, our calm Lilia, how do we approach that? I see you're muted. I don't know if Jess can unmute you or if you need to do it from your side. Yeah, there we go. So if you can tell us a bit about what you think.
So this is very normal. I think that's the first thing we want to tell ourselves is I'm so normal. If we think back to a stage in our life, if we can remember how we felt in our body when we were in school or when we were learning. So for a lot of parents that I speak to, they can actually recall feeling quite nervous, quite anxious in class, worrying about when the teacher was going to call them, worried that they were going to get something wrong in front of their peers. And so even though we've grown up, our bodies have matured, and in many ways we have matured, our nervous system still remembers and attaches that feeling with that experience. So that's why sometimes when our child is struggling to grasp an idea, we know, cognitively, we know like it's not the end of the world, it's not such a big deal, but our nervous system might interpret it as a threat, like this does not feel safe. And so just recognizing that we have a stress response going on, just recognizing it can be very helpful. And then to give our children compassion and ourselves compassion at the same time. So whatever we're doing for the child, we need to be doing for our inner child. So just acknowledging, hand on heart or whatever, just taking deep breaths or slow breaths, slowing our heart rate down and telling ourselves something like, this is not an emergency. Because we can't rationally solve any problem when we are dysregulated. So no real learning is going on when our kids are stressed and dysregulated and when they feel disconnected from us, when they feel that they're disappointing us, there is no learning. So it's just us trying to shove the knowledge into them so we can tick it off our list. And so that's also a big part of it, right? Just acknowledging, what do I need? Perhaps I need a cup of tea and I need to take a shower first. Perhaps I'm actually really stressed and I'm trying to do this in a short space of time. And maybe my child needs to just cry a little bit about what's really going on for them. So it's usually nothing to do with the present moment, but the 3 E's: emotions, our expectations, are they realistic? That's often the case. We have unrealistic expectations of how long children can concentrate for. And then the 3rd E is our past experience. So our experience from the past, we're often triggered by that, and then we bring that into the present moment with our children.
That's so true. Thanks, Lilia. All of those, it just resonates so much, just thinking of myself doing homework. And usually maths, I think that's usually people's thing, is maths or science, something where you've got to really understand. And obviously when you are flipping your lid, which we've been talking about the last few weeks, you're disengaging from your logical thinking brain anyway. So if you're going to sit there and argue about the maths, no one's going to learn anything in that moment. So I love those 3 E's. I'm going to remember those as well. Thanks for sharing. Okay, and then on to Cassandra, I want to ask you. So now we're talking about this, sitting, helping with homework, doing all these things. but we've been speaking about play. So how can we bring play into it and still manage to encourage our children to learn what we feel they need to learn or want to learn? Or let's talk about that a bit.
Right, so I think we can start off by asking, what is play, right? Because it is so fundamental to development, and it really helps a child to understand their world. So it's really the best thing that we can do for our kids. So we ask ourselves, what is play? What does that entail, and how do we play with our kids? So in order to answer those questions, we need to understand what happens when we play. So in order for the brain to grow, there are basically two fundamental things. Play needs to be fun, and play needs to be flexible. So learning only happens when play is fun. If you think of the kids that are struggling at school and they're not learning at school, one of the main things is that it's just not fun for them. They're not enjoying it. And then the other thing is, play needs to be flexible. As Anna had mentioned, you've got your routines, although they can be flexible. So it's not this structured, I'm going to be doing, science for 30 minutes. And a lot of the time, sometimes a science experiment, a child that's really into that sort of thing can sit and do that for 2 hours, So we really have to give them that flexibility to not try and stop that learning process from happening, and give them the opportunity to really learn. If they want to learn for 2 hours, give them that flexibility. And as well, if they're really struggling with something and or to concentrate, and we're expecting them to do it for that half an hour because that's what we have set in their routine, and they're not learning, but we're expecting that half an hour, to get something out of them. Give them the flexibility of, okay, you've done this for 5-10 minutes. You're not going to learn anything more than that anyway. So let's leave it at that.
And that makes sense. I mean, because kids don't want to be stuck in that rigid mindset if they're not in that space. Yeah.
Right.
I would like.
Yes,
sorry.
Anna.
I would like to add to that is that you're saying play, and even when we think when we're learning something like a science experiment, all the kids should be learning through play. It doesn't have to stop at 7. When kids are enjoying what they're doing, they are invested in it. They're naturally inquisitive. So if you give them a lot of stuff, something to play with or something to find out or a question, and through playing with whatever it is, the topic that you're giving them, they are much more, how would I say, open to the learning. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. It doesn't stop just because they're kids. Play is for everyone, even me. I prefer to learn through play even as an adult. And it doesn't always look the same for every person.
Yeah, and we tend to think that a kid learns when he's got a worksheet in front of him. That a worksheet doesn't equal learning. It is that hands-on stuff, the doing the experiments, the actual physical doing something.
Yeah. And Cassandra, I know you also speak a lot about with the playing and everything. You speak a lot about the brain and how that works. I don't know if that's what you were going to mention next. I wanted to just hand it back over.
Yeah, so I mean, exactly how Anna had mentioned as well. We've got this thing of, play is for younger kids. And it's really not, because when we can understand what is actually happening in our brains, we can apply that to everything. So, what kids are doing when they are playing, and this includes, right into teenage years, they're really focusing on the now. So play is mindfulness. You've got time that's just an illusion, and children really show us that because they're very present when they are playing and when they're learning. If you think of a child, when we're trying to pull them away from them learning in the moment, a lot of the time they get upset, we've got to go bath now or clean up your toys. And what we're doing is we're actually interrupting that learning process. I know we've touched on this with previous talks as well. When we are, narrating to our kids all the time, we do this also when we're trying to teach them, right? We're constantly narrating to them. I've often said to parents as well, we almost need to stop telling or narrating when we're teaching or trying to teach them before the age of 2. After the age of 2, you really want to leave them and stop telling. And sometimes, you bring in the questions and you start asking questions. But for example, I've got my bottle here. A child can be looking at this bottle and they're, trying to process the information of, okay, what is this water doing in this bottle? If I'm rolling the bottle, what's happening with the water in here? And we're coming along and we're saying, what color is this lid? And we're interrupting they're trying to process what's happening in this water, but we're coming in with that question and interrupting the learning process, right? So that's one of the things that's happening in the brain that we just need to be mindful of. Another thing that Lilia's also touched on, what play also does is it helps you to connect with your child. So, if we become more playful people, even with our partners, even with friends, it helps us to feel younger. And when we build those relationships, that builds the brain. So there's also been some research done on this as well with in terms of play, helping us to be more creative. So if we become more playful people, we are more creative people. We learn to adapt more. And then children also, they process things better through play. Again, I know we've touched on this, role play is amazing for this. Bringing into COVID, if we had role played a lot, about what COVID is throughout COVID, it would really have helped children to process, all of that. And then the last thing we look at in the brain, what's happening, in terms of repetition, that really helps to connect the neural pathways in the brain and solidifies those connections. So when we're guiding our children in their learning process, we show them something once, right? And then they repeat it almost naturally, because that is how they learn to remember that information, and it really strengthens the connections in the brain.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I love how you said that. Sorry, I'm going back to the water, because although we can't let children in class or when they do have homework just sit and it looks like they're just fiddling, but sometimes we need to be mindful of the fact that is actually learning. It's not just daydreaming or whatever it is. Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. We've got a little question here. What if my son with ADHD struggles to learn through play? That's such a good question. Who would like to take that one?
I'll take it.
Thanks, Cassandra.
So I think when we have this idea of learning through play, children are naturally curious, right? They want to explore, they want to discover. And this is when I'll bring in, we've spoken a bit about the cycle of learning. So when a child wants to explore and wants to discover, that's releasing endorphins in the brain, right? And those are the pleasure hormones. So through that repetition, because they feel, this is an enjoyable activity, they want to repeat it, they start mastering those skills. And then through that mastery, they feel in control of their learning and they build that confidence. And then that gives them, the curiosity of wanting to explore and discover more. So you've got this whole cycle of learning. And that's what happens when, we're learning through play. So if you've got a child that has got ADHD and is not, not learning through play, then I bring in the questions, well, how is he learning? What is giving you the impression that he's not learning through play? So I'd have to, ask more questions in terms of what's actually going on, because children are naturally curious. They want to learn, and they do that naturally through play if we give them the opportunity. So what is going on that he's not really, that he doesn't want to learn through play, because naturally children do.
And I think, like we were speaking about earlier, if it's child-led play, so if they're deciding what they're going to play, within reason, obviously, depending on what's happening, but if they're given that time in the day to decide what they want to play, they will be learning, whether it's blocks or reading a book or hanging upside down in a tree, they are learning something. And I think often as parents, we think, oh, they're just playing. We don't know how much is going on in that play. Yeah. And Lilia, I wanted to ask you a bit about the relationships with your children in terms of what we're talking about here.
Sure. I think that's such a crucial, a vital part. Somebody said that children don't learn from people that they don't like. I can't remember who it was, but I think it's very true. If we think of our favorite teachers, the information that we still have, the information that we actually retained, was often from teachers that we respected and teachers that we felt respected and liked us. And so that's a very important part of the parent-child relationship. So whether you are teaching your child full-time or just in everyday situations, children are always learning, learning from your behavior and how you interact with others, how you handle your mistakes, and whether you're a lifelong learner, how open to learning and making mistakes you are. This obviously helps children to feel safe with not knowing everything and with learning. So the relationship is a big part of helping children to orient around all those big things that feel so much bigger than them. And I want to say especially, but I don't think it's especially, it's for all children, but something for people to consider if your child does have ADHD or any neurodiversity is the relationship is very much a guiding light for children. So when they lose confidence in their capability and in themselves, when their emotions come up and they feel very inadequate, very unsure of themselves and their ability to learn, then how we see them and reflect their light back to them has a very powerful role in helping our child to believe in themselves again. So that's why conscious parenting fits so beautifully into conscious teaching. It's really about having a secure relationship with the child so that they feel safe making mistakes and admitting their vulnerabilities and feeling like they can discuss the emotions that come up for them, since we are such emotional beings, when they feel tired or when they feel like they don't understand.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I do feel like the relationship with your child is sort of the foundation of the learning. They're not going to learn if they're feeling like they're being judged or they're feeling like they're being led in a way that they're not comfortable with or not ready for. But I wanted to add, and I don't want to speak for you, Lilia, but when you said when a child doesn't like the person teaching them, not to say that your child doesn't like you. I don't think that's what Lilia was implying, but it's if they feel like they are not maybe meeting expectations or they're not feeling comfortable with you. Is that, am putting words in your mouth? I don't know. That's the way I was thinking.
Yes.
Anna, you wanted to mention something, I can see.
Oh, no, sorry. Well, I wanted to add on to that because Professor John Hattie did a big, meta study with, he took lots and lots and lots of research that was done in education and he brought it all together. And what he did was he found influences or things that have a big influence on children's learning, a big positive influence, and then smaller positive and obviously negative influences. But one of the biggest influences on children's learning is relationships. So Lilia, when you say about that child that likes his teacher, yes, this is why the first thing as teachers, what we do is we try to build that relationship, a relationship that would naturally be, I would say, stronger at home, but that we have to work on to foster in the class, because yes, you need that relationship, because then they feel comfortable to make the mistakes. And what we do a lot is we use data and we make the children's data available to them. I know I sound like I'm talking all over, but we make what you can do as a child in the class, whatever it is that we do. I tell you where you are, what your level is, and there is no shame in that. And we build that relationship in the beginning, because you need to feel safe within the learning environment. You need to feel safe to make that mistake. You need to be vulnerable enough in front of your friends so that they can help you, so that I can help you. But that can't usually happen if the relationship is not there. So that is almost one of the most important points that you've mentioned there, Lilia.
And I think it leads on to something I was going to ask anyway, so I'm glad you reminded me. Often the focus, even for parents, the focus is achievement, stickers, marks, awards, results, because that's the society we live in. And I'm speaking from my own experience. That's the schooling I had. It was very much, if you're not up there, you're not in the limelight, you're not in the picture. And often then parents that are sitting with their kids, it's forcing, and why can't you be like this? Why can't you do this? But we're not looking at the child in front of us and saying, what do they want to be? What do they want to achieve? So Anna, I know you wanted to talk a bit about the reward system, chart system, and things like that.
Yes, because a kid, how can I say it? So kids feel motivated when they know they can achieve. Okay, so yes, sometimes we use reward charts or whatever, but the biggest thing that we try to encourage children is to understand their level. So when I'm in a class, I don't teach grade 5. Or when you're teaching at home, you're teaching your child, forget what society says, oh, he's this age, so he's in this grade. You are teaching a child. Each child's level is different. We are all good at different things. And I use the example here, living in an Arabic society, where I say to my kids, okay, so I'm a teacher, I'm in my 40s. So do you want to say if I'm going to go into an Arabic class, I have to go into the master's Arabic class? No, because I'm not good at Arabic. And that really puts it into perspective for kids. But I think the way that we were taught, this is the curriculum, you're grade 5, so you have to read a grade 5 book. And what we do is we cause the kids so much stress because now I can't do it, so that means I'm not smart. And all of these things go through their head. Instead of finding out, okay, where are you when it comes to reading? Where are you when it comes to math? Okay, it does take a little bit of training or for a parent to really try to understand that. But I would say just take your kid from where he is and then what his interest is. Because if you are interested in deep sea animals, try to teach them through that, because then they're going to be more open to that learning.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually going to just say their interests are valuable. They don't have to learn about 18th century history if it's not interesting to them. What's the point? Sorry, no, you're going to say.
Sorry, and then you have a lot of parents saying, but you know, I have to teach English and then I have to teach science. But how can you look at science without having an understanding of language? You do not have to teach language as the separate pocket of something. When you look at that diagram with a deep sea animal and you're looking at the labels of it, you are looking at English or Afrikaans or whichever language you are looking at then. Language is the vehicle which carries all information. So yes, that's separate little boxes is not important.
And I think you can take, like you say, deep sea animals, and you can talk about science, and you can talk about history of animals, and you can talk about maths, how many animals, and you can, and that's what I love. Integrative learning makes sense to me because that's how kids' brains work. I was going to mention a quick saying I heard that I thought was relevant to what we're talking about. It said, if your child's really good at tennis and not so good at maths, spend your money on a tennis coach, because that's what they're good at. And I read that and I thought, oh, that's so true. But I'm also going, of course, I wanted to also speak about, because we are the Conscious Parenting Association, so anyone can take this one. Something I've seen is that the way I consciously parent my child is encouraging critical thinking without learning. The way I ask her questions when we just talk, and in discipline, the way we discipline, the critical thinking is there. So I wanted to ask some of you, how can we encourage that critical thinking just on an everyday basis, like in our conversations?
I think it's when you ask questions, Claire. You know, we constantly have this thing we need to teach our children, right? And we need to tell them all the answers and give them all the answers. But if we ask certain questions, and it's the way in which we ask them, and really encourage them to think about the answer and think about a solution, it really encourages those critical thinking skills. So I think we almost need to reframe the fact that, you know, we don't need to give them all the answers. You know, if we give them the space to figure it out on their own, it develops those skills. I know Anna's got a few things to say about critical thinking as well.
Well, yes, because there's a saying that says, and we spoke to Jess about this yesterday, but the one also asking the questions is the one doing the learning. And I think as teachers or as parents, we tend to throw so many questions at our kids. I believe that we should carefully plan the questions that we ask. Our questions should encourage their thinking, not interrupt it. And then we should encourage them to ask questions, because when they ask the questions, they are going to be doing the learning. Because if you just, it's Cassandra, like you say, if I'm going to tell you all the information, you know, I'm not asking you to think. But if I make a statement and I say to you, okay, well, Cassandra, you know, air pollution, whatever, what questions do you have about that? So now you have to think about my statement in a different way, and you or the child is encouraged to question. And what do all kids do? They question. So it's and it's something that we almost preach out of them. Maybe not, but I know in a lot of schools. Sorry, I'm bringing a bit of school in here.
It's
impossible.
It makes sense.
It's
all linked.
Yeah.
And I think because even after we did this talk today, I was playing in the sandpit with my 2-year-old, and I was saying to her, because she couldn't make the castle because she only put a little bit of sand in. So my instinct was to say, fill up the bucket. And then I said, oh, how do you think you could make the castle bigger? And she said, more sand. And I was like, yes. But yeah, I had to. And even though I know this stuff, it's so instinctive to tell. It's just an instinct. I don't know. I wanted to ask Lilia, following on from that, you had some great points about growth mindset. How do you think we can encourage our children to have this growth mindset that everyone talks about, but do we really know what it is?
Right. So as lifelong learners ourselves, and Anna and Cass have already touched on this, about creating an environment where children feel safe being vulnerable. Because when we feel safe being vulnerable, that's when we can take risks. We're not going to want to take a risk if we're so worried about how we look, or disappointing our parents, or making mistakes. So that's a big part of it. And having a trust-based relationship. So discipline comes in here quite a bit. Our children, how they feel about themselves, you know, when they are being corrected, is a very influential part of the relationship with our children. It spills over. So how we are with them when they are being corrected about how they've treated their sibling, or what they've done about not cleaning up in the kitchen. Obviously, these are all opportunities for us to help our children to feel safe, choosing right after they've first chosen wrong. So we want to really work on the self-worth of a child before we focus on their self-esteem and before we focus on growth mindset. So the self-worth is that they need to know that they are loved and that they are worthy of respect and protection and connection and all of those things for who they are, that they are inherently good at their core, and that we believe that with our full being, so that we're always drawing that out, because children will believe what we tell them they are. So when we tell them they're naughty, they're going to believe that they're naughty. When we tell them they're good, they're going to rise to that. And so that's really the foundation, the building block.
Yeah, and Cassandra, I know you wanted to add to that.
I just want to add a bit about, what parents can do as well, because Lilia's touching phenomenally on the, growth mindset and what we as parents can do for our kids to, really foster that. And I think a lot of the time parents, one of the biggest myths are that kids, they get bored at home, or they're not stimulated enough at home, or, they're not being socialized by being at home. So, we feel like we need to do more. We have this belief that we're not doing enough because we feel like we're not enough. So, I really think that we support our children through the learning process, and I really think that is the key word here, is support. That not that we are directing them in their learning, because they can learn on their own, but really to support them through that process. So other things that we can think of, that we can do with our kids is firstly to learn to play ourselves, really bring that into our relationship with our kids again. And, what does that look like? How do we play with our kids, which we've touched on a bit, really following their lead in the learning process, following their interests. What is your child interested in? And you can incorporate your maths, your science, your English, all of that into, following their interests. And then guiding them by being curious, by being silly, by being present with them, asking questions again, which we've touched on, And also, I mean, using everyday items, I'm a huge advocate for that. You know, you don't need all this stuff. You just need to you can have bottle caps and just things lying around the house. And, you know, their imaginations run wild. They become really creative. And we can really, you know, incorporate all of this into our learning at home, really just to foster that curiosity for wanting to learn more.
Yeah, and it actually brought me to something I was also going to mention that I forgot about. See how much I forgot. A lot of people are talking now about the homework thing. Like, do kids need to do homework? Is it beneficial? Because I know at school, my homework was like, I can't wait to get this over with so I can go play. But I wasn't learning. It was like, let me just quickly do it. If it's wrong, it doesn't matter. If it's right, it doesn't matter. I don't care. It's done. Move on. And what I've noticed is when my children just play, again, they will just learn what they need to learn. So maybe, Anna, I don't know if you're going to say something else, but I know you said something about it. Do you want to say something else first? And then we move on to the homework?
No, I'm good.
No? Okay. Would somebody like to chat a bit about this? Yeah. Ooh, sorry, I'm moving my whole desk.
I will just say about this is that homework isn't necessarily, again, if you send kids home to do homework, that is a worksheet. And this happens because this is what we know, or not we know, but this is what is known, is coming with sheets and sheets and sheets of paper. I don't necessarily believe that is the best form to do it. So what you could do sometimes is just like see what is there. So they have to do homework on air pollution. Go find a video on YouTube. Watch a video about air pollution. Find a song about air pollution instead of, you know, just throw all that bottle caps and things that Cassandra is talking about. Throw that out for them and say, design something to solve the problem of air pollution. Because really, we shouldn't be teaching children anymore. There is air pollution and there is water pollution and there's all of that. What we should be teaching kids at this point is, what problem do you want to solve? So there's a problem of air pollution. How can we solve it? Yeah. Because the rest is all available on Google.
Yeah, they can just look it up. And I think often we were saying this yesterday, children don't need to learn facts anymore. Facts are there. They need to learn how to think. They need to learn how to solve. They need to learn those things. But now I'm thinking, so there are parents at home, their kids are getting these worksheets for homework. They can't change the school system. They may not want to homeschool their children. So yes, maybe you need to sit and do this homework with your children, but there's also ways, maybe not, that you can maybe speak to the school as well and tell them how you feel. Maybe you do think homework is not necessary. Maybe you can tell them to watch our videos and think a bit about the value of homework. I don't know. It's tongue in cheek. I
mean, if a parent comes to me, if I am in a school where there is a homework policy of this and that and that, I mean, if the parent is going to take it on themselves and come back to me and say, listen, my kid is not going to do this because I don't think it's, what can I really do?
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to remember, so I have had children that have gone through the schooling system, and I've had some that have been homeschooled depending on their specific needs, because that's also something to remember. It's not always about our preference, but about our unique child. But what I wanted to say was that our children are actually the clients. You know, we're paying for our children to go to school, and they are often treated really poorly, where we wouldn't pay for a membership or go for lessons if we received the same treatment. So to be child advocates, that's quite a courageous thing to be, and we can do it in a way that is respectful. Having meetings with our children's teachers or with the head of departments, they are often quite open to hearing, you know, this new information, and very often they believe this themselves. And what they need is for more parents to be speaking up and be saying, you know, our children also, their mental health matters too. So they need time with their families. They need time to not be stressed, because what learning is really going on when a child is, exactly as you said, Claire, how many of us scribbled our homework or copied it from friends just before we went in the class? So what do we want? Are we wanting, as the adults, to look superior, like we fantastic teachers and fantastic parents, and our school is the best and our child is the best? Is it about that? Or is it about what's really going on? Like, so is it intrinsic or external motivation that we're wanting to develop in our child? Are we wanting them to feel good about what they know, or are we wanting them to look good for us? And I think that's where the conscious part comes in, you know, really being honest about what our intentions are for our child's education.
So you mean having those discussions with the principals and the heads of departments and trying to bring this awareness to them? I like that.
Yeah.
It won't always mean you'll be popular, and that's
no, sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I've thoroughly enjoyed the talk. I think we could actually carry on all day. But those of you watching at home, I hope that you found value in what we've shared with you. If you want to still ask questions, we'll carry on answering after the whole talk. Does anybody, before we move on, we've got prizes, but if you want to, before I mention the prizes, do you want to end off with anything that we haven't mentioned that you think is important? I think we've touched on everything.
I think one of the things I just want to mention is just to be mindful as well that you know, the focus is so much on academics, you know. Again, you know, we want to do more for our children. So the intent comes from a good place, right? But the focus has gone from, you know, helping a child to develop to, you know, this academics. And the problem is that it's not to say that the brain can't do it, because the brain is absolutely phenomenal. But I like to use this analogy of a tree, right? So if you had to imagine a tree and it branches off, right? You've got, when we try and accelerate the learning process, what we're doing is we're stunting the growth. So this is where the brain is going to process that information, but it's not going to branch out in the way that it has the potential to branch out. So when we focus, when the focus shifts from development to academics, it's because we want to do more for our kids. We want them to read at an earlier age. We want them to write at an earlier age. And we're really missing the point of, you know, what learning is about. And that's when the gaps and the delays, you know, start to develop. So if we can just focus on just allowing our children to reach to their full potential, you know, through play, and allowing them to, you know, explore and discover, without constantly dictating to them what we think they should learn and what we think they should know, we can really see our children, you know, start to thrive.
And I think often what would we see them do if we didn't tell them what to do? What are they going to do? They might do something amazing that we've never expected. And that's what I want for my kids. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Okay. If each of you, those of you who had prizes, if you can just remind me, I'm sorry, I'm still focused on the talk. If you can remind me what the prizes are, and those of you watching, if you want to win the prizes, you can just tell us in the comments. So Anna, you had a prize for us.
Yes, I've got a subscription to PM Reading. PM Reading is it's an international reading program that consists of about 350 books. It's incredibly well structured and leveled. It's one of the most amazing reading products. Ooh, should I be saying that out loud? Anyway, I've got, I bought myself some, so I've got till mid-June. I've got some subscriptions for parents for them to use.
Okay, great. Well, then tell us if that's helpful or if that's useful for you, and write it in the comments. And Cassandra, Lelia, sorry, you had something.
So I've got a book, Astro Story, which is a children's book to be read with an adult, in helping parents or caregivers to understand how to hold space for a child's emotions. And I have a 1-hour one-on-one coaching session to give away.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much for all of the things for the whole summit. We've had amazing prizes, so thank you. And yeah, then just before we end off, if you can all tell us how people can get hold of you if they want to work with you in coaching, or they want to ask questions, or whatever it is. Cassandra, you can start.
They can find me on my website, www.nannyknows.co.za, or Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Nanny Knows 101. So, yeah.
Thanks. And Lelia?
I am www.leliashot.com, and for free resources, you can find me on Synergy Parenting or Synergy Gentle Parenting Resources on Facebook. Thank you.
And Anna?
Okay, Anna's still in the process of getting the www sorted, but at the moment we're at on Elite Ed on Facebook and Instagram, Elite Ed Global. Yep.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you for joining us for this wonderful talk. I know we could talk all day. We've actually done a very long talk, so I can see like live people dropping off. They're like tired, it's late. Watch it again tomorrow. Thank you, Gail. She's learning so much from the sessions. Yay.
Oh, thanks, Gail.
And to end off with, before we go, I just wanted to remind everyone, we're not villainizing parents. We're not villainizing teachers. They are just systems that maybe aren't working anymore. And we want to support teachers, and we want to support parents, and we want to help you because we can see a different future for our children. And we want you to be a part of that future with us. So join us for the next talk on Thursday. And that's a talk for teachers. So we hope to see you all there. Have a lovely evening, and we will see you on Thursday. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.